somebody asked me, what do you want to be? Without thinking, I said doctor. And I was wondering, why did I say that? I didn't have this Florence Nightingale kind of complex where I wanted to serve humanity.
Hmm.
But somehow that came up, and then that's all it was. And I didn't even think a second time about that. It just happened.
Woof woof. Welcome to Kanha. Today I'm speaking to Dr. Padmini Rangaswami, who has been a practicing neurologist and a long-time heartfulness practitioner and trainer. Thank you so much, Dr. Padmini, for joining us and taking out time. It's wonderful to have you with us. And I do know that you're a neurologist and you've had a career in medicine, and much of that career has been in the United States.
Yes.
So, can you tell us more about your work life, what you have done?
Well, I started, I went to medical school in Delhi, and then I did my um, master's in internal medicine, which was also in Delhi, in Maulana Azad. And then after that, I worked for the government, believe it or not. I finished in 75. I worked there for 5 years. I worked for a organization called Central Government Health Scheme in the beginning.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I um, went to work for a teaching hospital in Delhi. And then at that time, I was very much interested in neurology. So I joined the neurology department, and I was working there when I went to the US. And there I had to qualify for my usual exams and stuff. And then I did my residency. They gave me a lot of break because they thought I had done enough to give me 2 years break. So I did not all the 4 years as most people would have done. I did probably 2 years and a little few months more or something. And this I did at Stanford. And so after I finished my residency, I went to Southern California and taught there, and also did my fellowship at University of California, Irvine. And then subsequently, I went into private practice. And then I did a lot of clinical research simultaneously. So my my uh, my practice was not your standard practice, because in the beginning it was like any other regular practice, office and hospital-based practice. But later on, I modified it to not work so hard. So what I did was, I don't know whether it need to get so personal, but anyway, I used to come home twice a year, or at least, or sometimes 3 times, and
That's
was
back to India.
back to India to visit, because my
Hmm.
parents were elderly. So I always felt that I have to come spend some time with them. But the life would be, murder before and murder afterwards, because I would pile up so much work. And one time when I came to India, and my father had a habit of lining up a lot of patients even in India when I came. So my mother, as I was leaving, said, if I had been sick, maybe I would have spent a little bit more time with you. Oh, I felt so bad. I said, no, this is not right. So I decided that I would not work as much. So I got into an arrangement by which I worked 3 months at a time. And this was with a guy from Yale, and I told him that I can only work 3 months, and I can only work when the temperature is between 60 and 80 degree Fahrenheit. So I picked spring and fall.
Wow.
And so I would go 3 months. So by the time I get settled, I will be time. So I did a lot of clinical research simultaneously. So it was that kind of a lifestyle. And then Then Chariji asked me to come back to India, so I did. In 93, I came back to India. And then I was here till 95. And then he said, no, you're not using your full potential, so you should go back and work there. So I went in 95 back to the US. And from then on, I had this arrangement I told you. And
Sure.
then afterwards, I decided to focus only on clinical research. So I did a few years of just pure clinical research in an independent research organization. So yeah, research has been a backbone. I've done research even before I left the country here. And I've always been interested in an inclusive type of medical practice. I, in fact, learned some acupuncture from a friend of mine who's an anesthesiologist who went to mainland China. In those days, I'm talking about 78,
Wow.
79.
To learn acupuncture.
To learn acupuncture. And I did treat some patients with Parkinson's, and they did get better.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did that. And then I used to send some of my really intractable epilepsy patients to Ayurvedic physicians, or, if they felt somebody else was able to give them better care, I say, please go, because whatever I cannot do, there must be some human being that can help you with. So I've always felt that all of us know a little, not a whole lot. And so if all of us put our heads together, we can do a better service to the patients that we have. So I always try to put that into practice in my practice. And so if you go to Arya Vaidyashala, a lot of them in Delhi would know that I would send patients to them that I couldn't treat myself because of people with bad epilepsy that I couldn't do anything with. If you gave them medication, they suffered from medication. If you didn't give them medication, they had other problems. So it was a very difficult situation. And I don't know if you're familiar with the practices in India. You just go in the morning and you see the last patient till he's there. They close the registration at around 12. Patients start coming at 9 o'clock, and whoever comes before 12 o'clock, you see. So you spend a whole day, twice a week, you're just so you do see a variety of patients. In fact, when I was at Stanford, one of my attendings, who was the dean of the university, incidentally, because he was a neurologist. So he looked at me, he says, "You must have seen more patients than I have seen." I said, maybe I didn't understand as much about them, but yes, I have seen them.
Definitely. The numbers.
Numbers, yes. So
yes.
It was a lovely experience for me because I felt that I had the grounding of clinical practice, which, and I can share a little joke with you. There was a guy with me, a fellow resident, and, we discussed a case that had just come in, and he says, "Oh, I know, this is the diagnosis." He was so sure. And I said, "How do you know that?" So he said, "I've seen one case, but classic." And I looked at him. "I've seen thousands, but I don't feel so sure."
The old adage that little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Well, it's dangerous or otherwise. I think what is not understood, and this is one thing that one of our professors at Maulana Azad taught us. He said, when I finished my MD and we were leaving, he said, if I've taught you to know what you don't know and to know where to ask for help, I think I've done my job.
Wow.
And I think I've taken that very seriously because it's too easy to depend on your degrees and your book reading to think you know. But all you know is a little bit of information, and that may not be enough for the patient you're treating.
Sure. Sure. So where did this interest in medicine actually start? Was it something you had since childhood, growing up in school, or do you remember a time where your inclination towards medicine started?
I have no idea. I think when I was in second grade, somebody asked me, "What do you want to be?" Without thinking, I said doctor. And I was wondering, why did I say that? I didn't have this Florence Nightingale kind of complex where I wanted to serve humanity.
Hmm.
But somehow that came up, and then that's all it was. And I didn't even think a second time about that. It just happened.
So, what, did your family have a history in the medical profession?
No,
Nothing.
in my immediate family, I'm the first doctor.
Wow.
So I don't know why I had that. To this day, I have no clue why I said that.
Wow.
Mm.
And you mentioned this special arrangement that you had. I think it's something that a lot of people deal with who go abroad from India, and they have family in India, they have parents in India, and they aren't able to visit. You, of course, will, wise enough to make this arrangement. But a lot of people do not have, the wherewithal to make that arrangement. So, what are the sacrifices you needed to make? I think monetarily it must have been a loss.
It's interesting. I was just telling somebody, he said, why did you do that? And I said, look, I'm a vegetarian. I don't drink. I don't need a beachfront property. So I really don't need a whole lot of money. And I said, if I want to work, I could work anywhere. I don't have to work in the US. And so I felt that at least I owed this to my parents. I didn't have to hear my mother say that she had to be sick to be seen by me.
Mm.
And really speaking, most of us have this concept of uh, of needing money for retirement, which I also had. I'm not going to pretend I didn't know. I didn't feel that because you never know. You get sick. Sometimes insurances don't take care of you, so you always worry whether you can, take care of yourself at that point. But then at some point, you also have to think that you have to live today and not be future protective, you know?
Mm.
So it is what it is. You'll figure out a way. If you've come this far in life, you'll find a way to survive. And, that's the attitude I took. It was easier for me to do, I must say, because I didn't have that many commitments like others might have had. People have young children that they have to raise. They can't be running around like I do. But then I told you I'm a gypsy by instinct. So I get really restless if I have to be in one place for too long.
Wow. But you mentioned you're a gypsy, but in one way you found uh, a place. This is more of a metaphysical place, not a physical place. An anchor in heartfulness. How did that start?
Oh, I'm the least likely person that could have that would have joined
A,
a
sp-
system with a guru,
a
right?
spiritual path.
No, spiritual, yes. I was always interested. My dad had a big collection of books, and I was an avid reader. So um, I used to read the Upanishads. I used to read Vivekananda. I used to read the various versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Every summer holidays, that was my thing to do. So it was always a very exciting thing to read about these people who, my 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 admiration for people like Prahlada or Dhruva. These are people who sacrificed everything
Hmm.
for their belief. I used to always wonder, will I ever have that kind of faith? You know, to just quit everything and say this is what I want, or not to get this, for instance. So So I used to think, well, but then I saw the scene in India where, you could slip 100 rupee note and jump the queue and go to the temple. I never went to the temples. I only attended temples when somebody got married in them.
Hmm.
So I had this healthy aversion for jumping the queue and other things. I must have been a lefty in some life. But at the same time, I knew that there was this fabulous thing that is described in our Upanishads and other texts. And I used to say, where is the connect between that and this?
What's going on in a temple?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on with the gurus. That was the time when Jim Jones and other things
Oh, yeah.
happened.
Oh, yeah.
So I was the least likely person to follow a guru at that time. But somehow, and this is a somehow, uh, I, uh, I, I met Babuji, and after that, I said, I don't care. He may be a guru, he may not be a guru. I just want to hang out with this guy.
Where was that meeting? Where was that first meeting?
Actually, I met him a little earlier than I joined. My brother was in the system, so he used to come and pick me up from the hostel to take me home on weekends. So one weekend he said, do you mind? My guru is going to Europe for the first time and he's in Delhi now. Would you mind if I take you there first before we go home? I said, yes, of course, your guru, I'll go. So I went and I was introduced to him by my brother. And I just did the usual namaste and didn't feel anything at that time. It was just, but then, I have to go back and tell you something that happened that I didn't connect to this event at that time. One day I was in the hostel. I don't know why. All of a sudden, I had this intense longing to just close my eyes and ask, and no reason at all. I wasn't having any catastrophic situation, nothing. I said, God, if you're there, show yourself to me. And I just, out of the blue, this thought came to me. I sat for a few minutes and then I said, okay, chalo, chalte hain. That was it. But then when I go back and look at the dates, it was within a week that I met Babaji.
Wow.
But I didn't realize it. Yeah, at that time when I went, I thought he was my brother's guru. No.
It's only later that you connected the dots.
Yeah, that's because I just realized that, once somebody told me, I mean, of course, everybody tells you that it's not an accident. And I knew it was not an accident because how can you suddenly fall in love with an old man like that, I'm not the kind of a person, I'm a very deliberate person. But this man just made me feel like that was it, And so I said, why am I feeling like this, Not that I was worried that I was feeling like this, but I was kind of introspecting because my father, to whom I was very close, used to get very upset every time I went to Shahjahanpur. So he would say, hey, your guru gives it telepathically, telegraphically. That was my father's word. He's giving you telegraphically. Why do you have to go to Shahjahanpur? I used to tell him, no, I want to go. And then he would come up, manufacture all kinds of illnesses before I would go. And I'd give him all medicines. I eat this, take this, you'll be fine. And so I understood that my father was kind of getting, I wouldn't say he was anxious because my brother was already following the system. My father knew it was a safe place. But suddenly his daughter, who was, so close to him, was suddenly running away to somebody else.
And eating into his time with you.
Yeah, not so much the time part. It was just that I think he couldn't understand that space being taken away.
Sure.
And so I used to wonder, why am I feeling like this? But there was no excuse, no explanation, but I was happy. I just said, it doesn't have to be, I don't have to go get, I don't have to go to Central Region or do anything like that. I'll hang out with this guy.
Wow.
And there used to be a very devoted Abhyasi who used to be with Babuji. His name was Satpalji. And we used to, during Bhandaras, everybody would chase after him to understand the details of Sahaj Marg. So once he gave this explanation, and I thought that was really neat. He said, भाई मैं सेंट्रल रीजन वेंट्रल रीजन कोई नहीं जानता, मैंने इस बूढ़े को पकड़ रखा, ये कहीं भी ले जाए ठीक है.
Wow.
And I thought that explained exactly what I felt, I was not interested in spiritual. I mean, I wasn't interested in reaching the central region or doing anything else like
The
that.
theory of
Yeah.
it.
It at the same time I knew there was a method to this madness. It's a the scientist in me was constantly deliberating on what does this mean and what does that mean. I'd go read and I would understand some of it I wouldn't understand. But at the same time there was this curious part of me, the child part of me that said, hey, I'm hanging out with the best guy. Why worry about these things?
Perhaps the understanding had already happened because of all your reading of the Upanishads and
No,
Vivekananda. So,
but I couldn't connect. One is to say, yes, I knew that this kind of relationship is possible.
hmm.
That I understood. But I didn't understand the mechanics of it. How is it? I remember when they told me that about transmission, and then when I used to deliberate on this understanding of constant remembrance, I said, Dimag mein to, how can you do two things at a time? Huh? How can you be in remembrance and do something else? I say, how can you do surgery being in remembrance? How can you do this? So, like I was kind of making very practical correlations, and that didn't fit. But then I knew that there was something very special about this guy, that I didn't care. I mean, he didn't have to be the most famous man. He didn't have to be the most sought after man.
Hmm.
He was there and I was there. We were happy. And
As
that's all we used to do, Even
wow,
when we got to spend time with him, I used to tell him, you rest. And then he'll take his hookah and he'll just smoke away. And then I'd just sit there and quietly listen to him. That's it. Listen
wow,
to the hookah. That was it.
wow. Because as far as gurus go, he had very little of the kind of accoutrements you expect of a guru. The kind of larger than life image some gurus have. Some spiritual teachers have, who dress grandiosely and have a large entourage and sit up on a throne. Was he like that at all?
No, he was the simplest man and he was the most childlike man I have ever seen. And so for me, it was like my old buddy who knows a lot, and I just hang out with him. That's it. I didn't care that, like later on when I used to think about after I got to see his diaries and all, I used to think, my God, I was sitting with him and he was having these great conversations with all these great guys, and he didn't let on.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is the beauty of his existence, I think. To me, there was never this, and there was this utmost sincerity. It wasn't like he was putting it on. And when he says, my simplicity is a veil, you understood exactly what he meant
Hmm.
because he was like that. Utter simplicity, in
Wow.
utter innocence. And uh, he never said a word that was out of place. I've never heard him use one word extra than he needed to use. And that, when they say that uh, saintliness is a proper use of faculties, uh, this is something that I understood earlier, I saw earlier, but I recognized it in him more than anybody else I had ever seen.
And did this happen in the first meeting or over the course of a few meetings? When did you know that he was?
See, when I first joined, I mean, like, I met him like this once, and then afterwards, every Basant, we used to go from Delhi by bus. I mean, the people in Delhi,
Hmm.
and the Delhi Abhyasis were a very close knit bunch. We were like one big family. So, so they would go to Shahjahanpur by bus. So the bus would start in one house, and then we'd have chai, samosa, something else in somebody's house, and all joining in together. Finally, we'd go. And so uh, one of the Abhyasis from Ahmedabad, he heard about this bus trip. He decided he was going to come on that bus trip because he thought that would be fun thing to do. So he is related to my sister-in-law. So he came to our house, and I happened to be there in my brother's house. So he chased me around a whole day asking me to join. He said, "This is really good for you. You will become a better person. You'll be this, you'll be that." And I told him, "Sir, I'm really quite busy." Those days I was teaching medical school, postgraduates. Also, I was doing my own research and then, running a small unit there. So it's a very hectic life.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I can't promise that I'll do all these things, but, really that's why I'm saying, I, I don't want to tell you that I'll do it and not do it. And then after some time, he got frustrated. He said, "I think you're scared that others will laugh at you." That got my goat. I said, "Of course not. I'll take it just now. But I promise you I may not be able to do it, so you shouldn't get upset." So he said, "Okay." So
And that's how you started.
that's how I started, on a dare.
Wow.
So so the next two sittings I had to go to somebody else because he had already left on his trip to Shahjahanpur. So I was to fend for myself, finding another preceptor. So I would do, and I would think that I was doing everybody a favor by just going and attending Sunday satsang. That's all I did in the beginning. Then one of the preceptors in our system, she came to visit Delhi, and she asked me to go with her to visit her brother. It's not my practice to just randomly go to somebody's brother's house with somebody. Those, a 2-hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow that day I felt like going. I said, "Okay, I'll go." So I went. That was the year I think Carter had been elected. So on the way, we were not talking about spirituality at all. And she said, "Oh, this Carter is a nice man. His heart is good." And I'm thinking, what does she know about Carter? She's never left India. I hadn't gone to US at that time. I was still in India. So I said, well, anyway, she's talking. Everybody's listening very attentively. So I better keep my mouth shut. So we went, and then we went to her brother's house. We had nice samosa and chai and everything. Came back. And then for a whole week, I felt like Babuji was walking with me and going with me everywhere. Such a joyous feeling. And I said, I couldn't literally not shake him off. And I said, my God, I should take this seriously. Just hanging out with this lady talking about Carter can get me here.
Mm-hmm.
Then I should get more serious. That's when I became serious. Before that, I was just, as I told you,
Mm-hmm.
I used to think I was doing them a favor by going for Sunday satsang.
And you mentioned how the Delhi heartfulness practitioners were like one big family. So you've seen that time, and now the family has grown considerably. How do you, what is the change you see from those days with Babuji to now?
Well, see, I just to give you a context. Um, one year when we were in Shahjahanpur for Basant, there were 2,000 people, and the 2,000 registration took place at 12 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited. I ran and knocked on Chariji's door to tell him, we have 2,000 people here. And that was the size of the group at that time. I'm talking 77, 78, that time frame. So you generally knew people who were in the mission because you'd meet them somewhere or the other. So it was it was it was a uh, very small family, and we knew everybody, and it was a good thing. And at that time, we needed that. We
Mm-hmm.
needed to form a group that worked together well. But then, like you said, the family has to grow. And I'm glad to say that I don't know most of them now.
It's too large to know.
It has to be large, and I'm glad for that. Because now, the seeds that Lalaji sowed so many, many years ago, when they grow, they need more attention, they need more time. So we need a larger group to serve humanity.
Absolutely.
So that can only happen with the subsequent masters putting in different levels of interventions to create that space in which a larger group could flourish and spread the word across.
So, in your initial days in the US, after you started the heartfulness practice, the US contingent, I mean, the US Abhyasis must have been a very small group as well. And that
Very
also,
true, very true. My nearest preceptor was 100 miles away, and we would meet once in a while. Those days we were not allowed to have
remote sittings.
remote sittings. So we would meet him whenever he came. See, I was in the Bay Area, so he lived in a place called Pacific Grove along the beach. So he would come on his way to go somewhere or things like that. So we would meet, or somebody would come from India, then they would visit, and then so in my town, probably there were only two people. Not even in my town, even the entire Bay Area, there were only two people at that time. So really, it was a very,
Very small group.
we could count in fingers how many people we were.
How many do you think today there might be in the Bay Area? Just an
I
estimate.
have no clue. I have no clue because because of the pandemic, we don't know how many people are really practicing.
Sure, sure.
We've given so many of them online, and so many of them are practicing regularly, and so many of them hear about it. So many of them take these master classes, so we have no clue how many people are there. So yes, it used to be. I used to have so-called regional gatherings in my house, and there would be about 15 people,
Okay.
all of California.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's not that many at that time. Yes.
And did you ever find it at a crossroads with your medical practice that you were also following a spiritual path? And here is a person, a neurologist, who is very scientific, but it is also something, that is not generally accepted.
Interesting that you asked that question. I had colleagues who used to ask me, Padmini, you're a neurologist. Do you believe in this mumbo jumbo? I said, come, I'll make you believe in this mumbo jumbo. Come take sittings from me. So they used to really make fun of me when I told them that I practiced meditation and things like that. But these were the same guys within a span of about 10 to 15 years started to send patients to me saying, I think you can help him with your stuff. So
Your stuff being heartfulness.
meditation.
Wow.
So yes, it's interesting that the transition took place over time, but I never hid it. I never told anybody that I was very open. I said, this is what I do. If you want, I'd be happy to help you learn. And some took to it, some didn't. Many of them just experimented. By those days, people like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, his classes were very popular with the serious spiritual seekers.
And the Beatles had visited him, and they.
Yes, yeah. So that's sort of a little pop, but you have to understand, doctors don't think they're like Beatles. You see,
Sure.
they want to look like they're more serious people.
Sure.
So they wouldn't be too excited about the Beatles part. But some of them I know told me that they do meditate with this Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's classes. So they had these 20-minute classes that they used to do. And they took all these expensive classes. They were $1,000 or something like that. Those days, $1,000 was a lot of money. But some of them were very serious, and they were very helped by that also. And I've heard Babuji himself say that Mahesh Yogi is doing good work. So yes, I think what heartfulness does, and this is the beauty of heartfulness. We don't claim to be exclusive.
Sure.
We don't claim that we are the only ones to give you this. We have some tricks up our sleeve, and we are happy to share that. But and our gurus have always said that we must respect all systems and all gurus with the same degree of devotion that we respect our own. And it's one of the things that Lalaji has mentioned in his do's and don'ts for abhyasis. And I've always taken that very seriously, because at the end of the day, uh, and I always tell people this because I think the scientist in me always comes out. So I always tell them, it may have worked for me. How do you know it's going to work for you?
Sure.
So you
Sure.
have to, I said, you have to do it. And Babaji used to say, you must try it, test it, and then accept. So I used to tell him, my own teacher says this. So why don't you try it, test it, and see if it's good for you? If not, you go your way. So I think this Catholicism that Babaji practiced in actuality had the greatest impact on me, because everywhere. I mean, those days were the days of Sai Baba and others. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know all the systems that were there, but there were some really fake guys at that time. There was one Bal Yogeshwar or somebody who did some really weird stuff. Anyway, so so I was a little skeptical about all these gurus. Um, Even though I never thought of Babuji as a guru, he was my buddy. But I mean, I could never bring myself up, because guru sounded like some alien person. Somebody you had to be respectful and keep a
Fall
distance
at your
from.
his
Keep
feet
a
and
distance from. Not so much the falling at feet as the distance from.
sure, sure.
But he was so part of my life.
Hmm.
So I didn't want that feeling of separateness. So I would always think of him as just my buddy. Anyway, so he always had this enormous generosity when it comes to helping anybody. I have never ever felt him say that, um, this particular group is bad, or that particular. I mean, not that I spent a lot of time with him, because even the time that I got to spend with him, he was so frail. I wanted him to rest. I wanted him to get more, uh, you know, uh, private time, because he was very frail by the time I joined the mission. So he would, even when he would say, "Come sit inside," I say, "No, you go to bed now. I'm not going to talk to you." Things like that, because we wanted him to get that space to be himself. And so I may have spent not a whole lot of time with him. And even the time I've spent with him, I may not have talked to him too much. And even in the time that we spoke, sometimes he would not wear his dentures. Then I wouldn't understand what he's saying. And it's very awkward to make him say the same thing twice. So I just keep quiet. But it was just the most lovely time I've had.
So you've been in many places, as you're saying. You have that gypsy heart. It's just going all over, traveling all over. And now you've come to this place, Kanha Shanti Vanam. How did this happen? Was it part of the plan?
No, I'm not spring chicken. I have to find a place where I'll finally be. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure that Kana had what I would need as an older person, because there were no medical facilities. And so I was thinking, when they were first announcing that they were going to build an ashram and all that, I didn't know whether it was the right place for me. But then there was always this pull, because Charji used to talk about it a lot. And I always felt that he wanted us to go there. He didn't tell me that. He didn't
Hmm.
tell anybody that I know of. But I always felt that this was his thing. And then he would talk so happily about how this will be the place where it'll be a self-contained community
Hmm.
and this and that. And he would say, we will grow our own food. And I used to think, oh boy, this sounds like the Jewish communes.
Yeah, what do they call them? The kibbutz?
Kibbutz,
Kibbutz,
yeah. And in fact, some of my family members call this a commune. I say, no, please don't do that. But they all love the way it has turned out, and they're all itching to come here.
And recently you had your friends from your medical college come here.
Yeah, that was a lovely experience.
And what did they think of the place?
Oh, uh, well, they liked it a lot. They didn't expect that it would be like this, you know. As I told you, one of them said, this is the most scientific ashram I have seen. So, yeah, I took them around. I showed them the tissue culture lab and all the other, our um, rainforest and other places. So they were really happy to see that. Excuse me. But I don't know. Two of them have already told me that some of their friends might call me to come and visit here.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, I think Kanha has that impact on people. When they come, they have these ideas about ashram being a very solemn, somber place, and then they see this place vibrant with all its different types of activities. Then they realize that this is really something special.
It's very difficult to categorize Kanha, you know. I mean, I don't know if we can call it an ashram or an organic farm or forest. There's so many initiatives going on. It's so many things to so many different people. What is it to you, sister? What do you think it's Kanha is?
You know, I was thinking about this. You know how in the Yatra garden, you start from point 1 and you keep going till you hit 13. And as you know, each of these points have different qualities and different things that we all have. So I think I look at it this way. It's like we all have to get to the central area, the point 13, as they say. But we all start from different places. Each point has its own characteristics. So, like that, even though we may start with uh, different qualities that describe us, finally we'll all have the same qualitylessness. And so, this to me is, I think I sent you something to the thing that it's a place where imperfect people go to become perfect or try to become perfect.
Hmm.
And this somebody who's helping you get there.
Hmm.
And this place organically makes it easier for you to become that. I see the way I'm changing here to the way I was elsewhere. And I have to say, this atmosphere is just magic. I, I, I just feel the extension of myself everywhere, which I'm not going to say that I feel that in every space that I go to.
Hmm.
But it's just simply easier to feel that here because of the amount of work that our masters have done in just changing the atmosphere. I would encourage everybody to not have any preconceived ideas. Don't even believe a word of what I say. Just come and feel it. Just be open to it and enjoy that experience of learning what this place is.
Also, the community here. I mean, a lot of places we have a certain, we expect a certain um, kind of people to be living or participating. But the community at Kanha kind of defies categorization again. I mean, you have the whole gamut from industrialists, so who drive really fancy cars, to people who can't even afford a bicycle. You have the whole gamut. It's like a little micro slice of society, and somehow they all come together and they all work together, and they are building something with a common goal in mind.
Correct.
Do you
Who
think
doesn't need God?
exactly?
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, we all sit down and meditate together. And uh, you think that is the real glue. It's your old buddy who's getting everybody together.
We don't know. This is the part. This is the silent part of the work that goes on. Um, we all think we are doing something to improve ourselves. Somebody is helping us do this, and that somebody is the guru. And our one of the foremost things uh, that Daji started after he became the president of the mission was this Bandara we had in Lucknow, where he emphasized anonymity and simplicity. And that is the way these guys work. You don't know their work, see the effect of their work, but if you ask them, they will absolutely claim no knowledge of it. I've literally confronted Chariji. I would say, why are you lying to me? You should be able to tell us that you have done this for us. And he say, no, I'm just doing what my boss asked me to do. So this is the beauty of their existence, that even they themselves, I'm sure, are not aware of what they are doing, even though they have tremendous insight. I'm not going to underplay that, but their way of doing it, and this is, for the longest time, I used to think that Lalaji was the most fortunate guy, because I used to think, who will get such a dedicated disciple like Babuji? You know, because he'll say, I cannot even drink a drop of water without his permission. And I say, my God. And then I saw remember, I used to tell you that I was enamored of Prahlada and Nachiketa and all these other great people who were, you know, uh, faith personified. And I heard him say this. And when he says this, there is not one, uh, there's absolute, how shall I put it? The word is sincerity in the way he says it.
Mhm.
There is no doubt there will be no doubt in anybody's mind that when he says this, he means every bit of it. And I used to think, what a lucky man he is to have a disciple like this. But I'm sure uh, if he can be that devoted, the person to whom he was devoted must have been an enormously, special person. But what I'm saying is, to me, I used to always think that, oh, Lalaji, you're a lucky guy. You got this guy for you. But this is the level to which they are unaware of themselves, is what I'm saying. There were times when he would say, I could spin the universe like a top. At the same time, he would say, I can't drink a drop of water with. So where is the connect?
Mhm.
And that is the simplicity and anonymity personified, that does not allow them to even be aware of what they are. They have to probably come 10 steps down to even be aware of what they are doing.
Sure, sure. Also in Kanha, since you are from the medical field, Kanha is also involved in a lot of wellness initiatives, health initiatives. I mean, right from conventional allopathic medicine to Ayurveda to acupuncture to different homeopathy. Um, how do you see that going? I mean, because sometimes we can be very exclusive in our outlook that it's only this way and not the other way, and absolutely disregard the other way. I mean, I have a family physician who, just refuses to talk if I mention homeopathy.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know, so,
Oh, there are quite a few of us like that.
so or if I mention Ayurveda for that matter. But here in Kanha, you have all of that and side by side.
Correct.
And how do you view that coming from the medical field?
This has been my dream all along, to integrate, because I knew, see, there was no decimation of population in India, and Ayurveda has been in existence for thousands of years. So clearly something worked,
Hmm.
right? So, and then populations elsewhere were growing. So clearly something was happening in various places which were useful and productive for those populations. So why not learn from each other? And we are lucky in India to have access to so many types of medicine. You know, if you ask, actually, if you secretly ask all your patients, they'll tell you, yes, doctor, I go to this homeopath and I take this also. I do this also. And unfortunately, the the so-called modern system of medicine that I was trained in uh, had a lot of contempt for these, unfortunately, because none of them explored this scientifically. But, it was very common in my medical school for people to say, ye to homeopathic dose hai, in a very denigrating way. And I used to tell them, how do you know homeopathy doesn't work? You haven't tried it. You've just read a few books. You think you know this. Fine. You've treated patients. Fine. But you can't say you know what you know, but you should be able to know what you don't know. When you put down something you don't know, it's prejudice.
Sure.
So, as going back to what my professor told us, if you know what you don't know and know who to ask, then I think I've done the good job. So I always felt that if something I do cannot help my patient, I have to find somebody else who can help my patient. Because they have come to me in all sincerity with the hope that I will give them some guidance. So I've always felt that, and I've always wanted to have a clinic where I would integrate everything. But, things didn't happen the way I wanted. I tried in UCLA to meet. There is a East-West clinic or something they called it. So I wanted to kind of get involved in that, but it was heavily Chinese oriented. So that guy said, if you want to learn Chinese medicine, I can teach you, but I don't want to do the kind of thing you were thinking about. So to me, this is really my dream. And one of the things that I would like to do, I don't know whether everybody would be interested in this, is to take a few patients and then, difficult patients, and then run it by different medical specialties, meaning, Ayurveda, this, that,
Hmm.
and then see what works, or even a combination of things.
Absolutely. And you have, of course, the
Yeah.
meditation is the backbone
Yeah.
of.
So, the good thing is we're treating one human being, we're acting as if he's got 5 different ways of, responding. There's one heart, one lung, two lungs, of course. But what I'm saying is one system,
Hmm.
and everybody approaches it from a different angle. That doesn't mean they're not right. So if you can learn some more, after all, uh, we didn't know the effects of pollution, even 50 years ago. Cigarette smoking, we didn't know the
Yeah, I
effects of.
mean, in
Mm.
the world wars, it was part of the ration of
Eh,
the soldiers to be getting cartons of cigarettes.
Yeah,
Nobody knew it was bad for you.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, there's always learning, and one of the nice things about medicine is you have to learn continuously. So why not learn from other sources? Why not bring? See, if you had to treat everybody with allopathic medicine, we don't have the wherewithal. It is too expensive. It's impossible.
Mm.
There are few countries are they're all breaking up. You know that they're breaking down because they cannot afford the the so-called level of care for everybody. So the insurance companies are going broke. So we know that what we are doing is not
Sustainable,
practical,
yeah.
not practical.
Mm.
So why not find something that will help them and not cost so much? I mean, are you going to take your medicine or are you going to take your food? For many people in North America, that is a problem.
That's the choice they
Yes,
face.
that's the choice they face. Can you pay your insurance premium or can you bring food on the table?
Wow. That's like,
Uh, See, it is unfortunately the the the, the top 5% has no clue and doesn't care. So the people who devise the systems are all on their own. The insurance companies have their profit motives. The So I won't say all of them are bad, but what I'm saying is there is a tendency to call these systems of medicine unscientific. How do you know that?
mm,
Some idiot sat there and saw patients regularly and gave some treatment and they got better. So how are you better than them? Just because you have few papers you can publish or few books you have read or few conferences you have attended, you don't become any better. So when approach to knowledge is so biased, so prejudiced, I think that's a prescription for disaster, which is why it is impossible anywhere in the world
mm.
to give the standard of care that you would want for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think there's a nice parallel that you see in medicine and also in spirituality. That in medicine, also the goal is one of all medicine, be it Ayurveda, it is to give better health. It is health giving for the patient. That is your goal. And in spirituality, also, what Kanha is about, that the goal is one. Everybody is welcome to this campus and approach it from their own. I mean, you have different people from different beliefs coming here and organizing their events and using the facilities here. So it's that commonality of the goal is there. And that's even in the wellness offerings of Kanha and heartfulness. It's there that the goal is to give health by whatever means
Exactly.
you can.
See, at the end of the day, there is the physical health, then there is the mental health, there is the emotional health, finally, the spiritual health. All this health is best taken care of by using preventive medicine. And nobody pays attention to that. They do, but they don't. Meaning, they know mentally that prevention is the best way for cure, but we don't spend our money where we think it should be spent. If we can prevent all these illnesses by, for instance, in Ayurveda, they have this concept of dinacharya. What you eat every day helps you to stay healthy. There is the ritucharya, what you do in different seasons. So they have come to this kind of advanced thinking over several centuries of figuring out. Allopathic medicine initially was only practiced by barbers, right?
I don't know this history.
No, it's a long 300 years ago. Those were the guys. That's how all these infections used to happen because
Oh, okay, because barbers were being visited by so many
we are
people.
people. Yeah. So the issue is because at that time they didn't have a concept of infection very much. So think about it. Our dinacharya tells you how to wash your hand. Even everything in Ayurveda is a way of life to stay healthy. Of course, when you get sick, they can help you also. But the concept in my house, when we were growing up, my mother would give us oil bath twice a week, no matter what happened.
Mm.
For the girls, it was Tuesdays and Fridays. For the boys, it was Wednesdays and Saturdays. You had to have your oil bath. And then we had to have a concoction with some castor oil, like, like a, uh purging experience, so that your stomach is cleaned out totally. So these are all things that were done preventively in many families. And my father died at the age of 94. He just walked and said, okay, I'm going to die, and died.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, yes, are we going to be able to do everything that we did in those days? Well, if we put our emphasis on that, maybe we'll find a way to do it. Instead of popping a vitamin pill, which, of course, one could say, not everybody has access to everything, food and all that. But if you followed a certain ritual in your eating habits, and all these things are regional. If you notice, for instance, in North India, the spices you use are different from the ones you use in South India.
Absolutely.
Right?
In fact, the fruits are different. We just
Exactly.
experienced it 3 days ago because there was these ice apples, if you
Yes,
saw
yes,
on the
yes.
WhatsApp, which I had no clue what they
Even
were.
this was my first
I had
experience with
never
ice
heard of
apple.
them, ice apples. So they call them nunga in Tamil. And of course, we have Tamil people, in Kanha, we're such a mix of people. We have Tamil people, and one of my Tamil friends said, "Oh, you must try this." And of course, we all stood in line, and it was something that we'd never even seen in our lives. For
Exactly.
us North Indians, it was very difficult. But it's exactly what you're saying. Everything is so different.
See, Babuji used to say, and he used to give me some pearls like this, which I wish I had written it down at that time. He used to say that the cure is always where the illness is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Right next to the stingy nettle, you find the
yeah,
dock leaf that you can.
exactly. So the reality is that in the winters of North India, where I grew up, um, you had to use a lot of saunf and other um, condiments that were appropriate for that climate.
Ginger powder, salt
Ginger,
was used a
yeah.
lot. Mm.
So all these things were seasonal. If you notice, every season brought its own kind of food that
Absolutely.
we ate, even the things we cooked. And in my mother's house, there was a set pattern by which we ate. On Ekadashi, my mother fasted. So in the evening, she would make a little uh, drink with moong ki dal, with some jaggery and a little bit of cardamom. And because the whole day they would have fasted, so you have to eat something light. So they would just have it before going to bed with some milk. And then on the day after Ekadashi, Dwadashi, there was a set menu.
Mhm.
You had to eat by 8:30 because you were hungry. And so there would be a certain type of green that you would have. You get it in our ashram. It is called uh, uh, I forget the name right now. It's just escaping. So they sell it here.
Mhm.
So you make a vegetable out of it with that green, and then the menu is also set because you have to eat something that is not too heavy, and you should eat it early enough so that your stomach doesn't starve for too long.
Mhm.
So like that every day, and then in the mornings they would cook relatively heavy food. For the evenings, they did not make even the dals. In North India, there is a practice of eating dal because you guys are hardy, you work a lot. So people like us who don't do too much don't need so much uh, calories. So the food eaten by the farmers is different by the people who were the landowners.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because these guys had to be in the sun. And everybody had this. Now it is now sold in five-star hotels. I have to tell you this. Eh, what you do is the leftover rice, you put water in it, and let it stay overnight. It ferments
Hmm.
and it has a lot of B vitamins. So you add a little bit of dahi to it, or in poor people cannot afford that, so they would put some buttermilk in it, and then have it with onions and green pepper. And now that is being sold in 5-star hotels in South India in these mud pots, and it's presented with a flourish. But these people needed vitamins. How did they get it?
Yes.
See, the food habits. So Ayurveda made my one of my Ayurveda friends used to tell me, uh, uh, don't think of it as Vaidyam, think of it as, for food, he used another Sanskrit word. I'm forgetting the word. So think of it as food and not as
Ah.
treatment. So he wanted me to, for some reason, he told me to take this. I said, you guys make my life miserable. Don't have coffee, don't have this, don't have this. So he says, well, some things you have to give up to get better. But generally, he said, think of it as food and eat it. Because otherwise, this trifala,
Yeah, yeah.
everywhere in India,
Yes.
people use amla,
Yes, yes.
right? And the trifalas, all the three. My mother used to give us home treatment remedies for almost everything. And her pantry had all the various things that were available. And we used to just be treated with that. And all the neighborhood young women used to come to my mother, like, Auntie, I have this problem. What do you suggest? My mother knew something to suggest to them. Instead of everybody running to the doctor for a little stomach ache for the child,
Hmm.
my mother would give hand remedies for almost everything.
Wow.
And she wasn't formally schooled. My mother probably went up to 5th grade.
Incredible. That's traditional wisdom passed down over
Mm.
the ages.
Because, everybody in her house and everybody in there, my mother knew how to read the pulse. She
Wow.
just learnt it from her grandmother. She didn't have any formal training. Grandmother taught her, because the kids just hang around their grandmothers. So she just taught her.
So it's interesting. I mean, but in the modern day and age, we value exotica, something that is not of our place is so exotic and it's so attractive to us. I mean, and it works both ways
Mm.
because you have something like, which is a very common drink in the winters, is a haldi doodh in North
Hmm.
India. Before going
Even
to
here,
sleep.
yes.
It's very common to
Mm.
have haldi and a little pepper
Mm.
mixed in your milk. And now you are getting turmeric latte
Yes,
served in
exactly.
Starbucks.
Exactly. And look at the coconut coffee.
Yes, yes. So-
There was a time when they said all Malayalis were having heart attacks because they were having too much coconut. I think it was cigarettes. Most Malayalis were smoking.
yes. Yes, no doubt. And also, it's the fact that you value exotica so much that you value maybe something from oranges from somewhere, or apples from
Mm.
somewhere, or apricots from somewhere. If
I
they have,
don't buy anything that is not regional. I
yeah,
don't.
because
I
that
don't buy.
necessitates preservatives. Then, if it has to come all the way from
Yes,
California
yes. So
something to India,
exactly, exactly. So buy local is really very true.
and Kanha's taken a different route. Kanha has decided to grow whatever is grown here.
Exactly,
You
exactly, exactly. Half the problems in agriculture is because we transplanted things that don't belong here.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely, and also it's the entire process you are now aware of. So it's a great place to actually implement things because it's difficult for us to go to a person who's living in a flat in a major metropolitan city and say, "Oh, you must eat fresh fruit, or you must buy organic food," things like that. It's very difficult for us to say, but because it's just not practical for that person. He doesn't have
I used to think that, but I
Mm.
no longer think so. I'll tell you why. Because um, I started to be more serious about my food maybe a decade or so ago. Um, Once you decide, you can source many things. In Chennai, for instance, now, where I used to live, there are people having terrace gardens where they grow their own vegetables.
Wow.
There are people who are growing, they bought land in the outskirts of Chennai and they grow organic vegetables. And because the supply chain is so good,
Hmm.
that they're able to distribute it. See, it is another matter that it has become a class issue because it's become expensive. It doesn't have to be. If everybody uses, the cost will come down.
Sure.
And if we all insist that everybody should be given only organic food, then we won't need so many pharmacies. Every third building in Chennai is a pharmacy. Every fourth building is a eatery. So you see the connection?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
eat that bad stuff, you go to the pharmacy, get your drug, and then, you know, you go to the doctor who's, the fifth building. So we've created an ecosystem where all these people flourish. I'm not saying they shouldn't do their jobs, but my point is if we recognize the value of dinacharya and do it sincerely, because my mother traveled from a small village in South India. She got married and then lived in Chennai for a little while. Then she moved in 1943 to Delhi before independence. So this is a this is a practice she was able to stick to because she said, I don't care.
Mm.
My kids get these things no matter what. And once she made up her mind that way, she said, what is it that I can cut? So she will cut everything else but this.
Mm. So it's a
So
question
it's a
of
question of
prioritizing.
priority, right?
Mm.
And if the government prioritizes something like this as a health for the community or for the nation, it's not impossible. A country is able to send satellites to all over the place should be able to get some organic food to its population.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
think we have our emphasis in the wrong place. Look at the number of cell phones that we are carrying around. Each one of us has one or two, and some of us have more gadgets than we know what to do with. So if you don't spend that money there, but you spend the money elsewhere, do you think you won't be able to afford organic food? It's just not been prioritized enough, and there's not been that willingness on the part of the medical faculty to suggest that this is a way out of illness.
Mm. In fact, someone was telling me a Tamil saying
Mm.
that actually says if you paid the farmer, you wouldn't need to pay the hospital.
There's another saying I will tell you which is even better. வைத்தியனுக்கு கொடுக்கறதுக்கு பதிலா வன்னியனுக்கு கொடுக்கலாம். That means instead of giving it to the Vaidya, you give it to the guy who makes the oil. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so put your money in the oil so you don't have to go to the Vaidya.
Go to the vet. Go to the doctor.
Mm. So this is all, see, this ancient wisdom, especially Tamil as a language, I mean, it's my mother tongue. I'm glad that I know how to read and write. And I tell you, it's amazing what treasures are there. I'm sure it's there in all our languages.
Mm.
And somehow we have not spent the time to use them practically. All these sayings are very practical. It's not some esoteric stuff, or it's not some fancy coupling of words to make you feel good or intelligent. Yeah, everyday normal stuff, common sense stuff, which people were practicing. I would say that my mother's generation, people were still like us. I mean, my mother was not an exception in her generation.
Mm.
My generation, once we started to go out and study and do other things and travel more, we didn't spend the time to see what is important to us. We've wasted our life chasing after things that have no meaning in our lives and lost out on the good stuff, precious stuff that is within our reach.
But do you see any silver lining in the future? Do you see?
I absolutely do. And the reason is what I see in the younger generation. We are a confused lot, but our younger generation is very clear. I'm not saying I know enough about them because I do hear a lot of bad stuff also.
Mhm.
There's a lot of addiction, I'm told. There's a lot of addiction to different things, not just drugs. So it's not an easy thing to wean everybody off of these problems, but the real hope, I think, is when we develop holistically in Sahaj Marg,
Mm.
when our Ashtanga yoga is not just dhyana and samadhi.
Mm.
So incorporated in that, Patanjali had the wisdom to incorporate everything that was important. He just said, I'll give you Babaji just said, I'll give you a shortcut to this.
Mm.
That doesn't mean the other things are
Not
irrelevant.
important, yeah.
So when we understand, and this is where I'm really grateful to Raji for all the stuff that he has put in public domain for everybody to learn from. All his, I give the special editions like I distribute candies to kids because that wisdom is amazing, so practical.
Mm. No doubt.
Mm.
No doubt. So, Dr. Padmini, we've been speaking for over an hour and 15 minutes.
Sorry.
Just one last question to end with, since you are a neurologist and you were just mentioning about how things are preventive, traditional medicine is preventive. What do you think? Does heartfulness also work as a preventive in a certain way?
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't have to get the samskaras and then get rid of them. So the ultimate prevention is in heartfulness because by cleaning, you remove whatever is not there. By remembrance, you avoid forming samskaras. And by prayer, you remove what you're not able to do yourself. So, what better prevention can you get?
Thank you so much, Dr. Padmini. It's been wonderful talking to you. I know that we can talk, we can carry on, but it's late. It's getting late. It's almost now. It's 1 hour, 20 minutes. So but it's just flown by. It's been so engaging. I've loved all the wisdom, and I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from this conversation. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us.
Thank you for asking me to join you. I always enjoy talking to you. You know that.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of KanhaCast. Please follow and subscribe to KanhaCast on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. Until next time, woof woof.